always called...
Domestic science.
Thank you. It was always called domestic science when I was...
So, thank you so much for watching. We will see you in 2 weeks for more. And yes, that's it.
Nothing else to say, is there? No.
No, I thought you were going to say goodbye.
Oh.
So, let's just do that again.
So now we're going to put the top on... No, we're not. Yes, we are. We're going to put the top onto the top. Didn't make sense when I said that.
I walked straight in the door and I was like, that's like Janice from Friends. Oh my. Whenever you're ready, turn to the camera and go.
Make it really loud. Templates or anything, that's not the right word. A cutter. Template. It's like I'm making a quilt.
Hello everybody! Now I was excited because it was raining outside and the skies were grey, but now the sun's come out.
It has.
It's the first time actually in months that it must be March or April since I was out running and it was raining.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
And it was this morning, which was lovely, and it's a really grey sky. It's still not, I mean, there's still a warmth.
Yeah.
But it's still August.
It's still
so,
August.
You know,
it's still August.
fair dues. But it was, to be fair though, just these last few days, I don't know about you, I suppose it depends where you are in the world as well, but
Yeah.
I've been noticing a change in the trees.
Yeah, a little change.
I'm hoping that that's just not
And
the fact they've not had a lot of rain, but we have now.
We have had some rain, thankfully, now. But
It's
no,
been
the
coming down.
mornings have been just a little bit cooler, I've felt as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well,
So-
let's hope it's on the turn anyway. But this week it's going to be like, I didn't tell you, it's going to be like 22, 23 degrees one day this week.
Hey ho, it will soon be autumn.
It will soon be September.
And
it's not long.
And we're ready for it. Oh yes. Now, I don't know about you, but summers tend to have a theme. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, you tend to go out and do things and, you know, be maybe a little bit more active. During the winter, you huddle down, sit in front of the fire and do some knitting.
That's true.
But in the summer, that's when you get out and about. And, you know, when I think back to different summers, we had the summer of Father of the Bride. Whereas that particular summer, you just watched Father of the Bride a million times.
Yeah, is there two of them?
It's Father of the Bride 1 and Father of the Bride 2.
Yeah, and we just watched them over and over. So we did have a summer a couple of years ago, didn't we, where we watched Father of the Bride.
Tried to repeat it another summer, didn't work.
No.
Because the moment had gone. You can't force it. This summer has been the summer of ice cream.
A summer of ice cream?
Oh,
well,
yes.
Yeah, we have had a lot of ice cream.
Oh, yes. Really steered by...
It's steered by you. You're the one that's mad on ice cream.
Not disputing that, but the opportunities arose to try more. And, you know, historically, those of you who watched the Baker Best Treasure Hunt will know that we went to the Brymore place. I don't even know what it's called because they don't even make it there anymore.
Do they not?
No, they sold
I thought they did.
No, they sold. I'm sure that it's not made there anymore.
It's on a farm. It's a farm, and but the actual building where they sell the ice cream from, and the interior and the decor, it's pretty awful.
Certainly smells of cows around there.
Does smell of cows.
That's fine. That adds to the flavour. But we have tried. Now, Archer's properly, and I mean, we had Archer's ice cream before.
Archer's is very good, yeah.
We had it before because, you know, there's certain sort of places we've been to where we've been able to have it. But we just went, didn't we? We just went for a trip and it was absolutely gorgeous.
That is more like that's on a farm again. It's like, and they do make it there.
Yeah.
And you can actually see the cows that the milk comes from. It's Jersey cows. A lot of them are Jersey cows. And they do make it there. And it is more of a sort of little ice cream parlour type building, isn't it?
It's superb. Everything about it was great. The quality of the ice cream is brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, you always know, I think, a good ice cream because you can get your spoon and
it's really smooth.
You can just run
creamy.
It straight through it. Brymore, you can't do that.
No, Brymore's more...
It's too solid.
Solid.
There's too much water in it.
Icy.
The best ice cream that we had all summer was English Lakes ice cream.
It was.
And we thought that you could only get that in the lakes,
Yeah.
hence the name English Lakes Ice Cream. Well, hold the phone. English Lakes Ice Cream, not 15 minutes from home. Well, I walked straight in the door and I was like Janice from Friends. Oh, so there it was, out on, and 16 flavours. 16 flavours. Unfortunately, they didn't have my favourite flavour, which is salted licorice. But that's fine.
That's quite a niche flavour, isn't it?
Yes, but don't get excited. She got excited about the amount of flavours they had, and I wouldn't have asked the question had she not been so excited about the amount of flavours. Oh, yes, we've got 16 flavours, more than what's there. Do you have salted licorice? No. Well, I'm afraid you've blown it then. And I turned and I left. I'm lying. I got unbelievably excited. And I just sort of started looking and picking out the flavours, saw the raspberry ripple that you had.
Oh, yeah, that was amazing. I love raspberry ripple.
And Bryony got very excited because they had Death by Chocolate, which she
loved that
tried
one.
and she loved that one. So, unfortunately, we were stood there, Bryony and I, with fish and chips in our hands. So I said, we'll be back. And you know when you say that in a shop and you know that the shopkeeper's thinking, no, they won't. They've done a sweet browse, we'll never see them again. I said, no, we really will be back. You'll still be open, won't you, in about 8 minutes?
I'm going to wolf down the chips.
So back we went, and I had raspberry ripple and lemon burst, and they were both superb. I was concerned that English Lakes Ice Cream might be, although I never drank Guinness. So
I've had one Guinness in Ireland.
Right.
And it was amazing.
Yes. And they say that outside of Ireland,
Yeah.
it's just not the same.
No, I don't think it is the same.
Well, that was my concern. My concern was English Lakes Ice Cream would be like Guinness.
That it wouldn't travel.
Yes.
Even though it's not travelled far, really.
But it's travelled far enough to be put in a deep freeze and to have formed ice crystals and, not be as good. It was. So I can tell you categorically, English Lakes Ice Cream can travel. Delicious. So I'd like to know, what have you been doing this summer? I know what you did last summer. Well, I don't. And I'd love to know, have you done anything fun this summer? Have you had a theme for your summer? Maybe it was a Father of the Bride theme.
Maybe it was.
Let us know. Tell us in the show notes below.
Bryony's had a Sherlock theme.
She has. She most certainly
She's
has.
absolutely crackers about Sherlock.
Look, you need to take that.
Do I?
And you need to get off to your lessons in the Forbidden Forest.
I do. It's Lupin's. Bryony won't be happy that you've stolen Lupin's wand.
Well, it's not actually Lupin's wand anymore. It's Kay's wand.
Oh, thought I got it wrong.
And she needs it for her lessons. Because look at this. Oh, it's the inside. Look at this. I'll show you the inside.
That's a nice wand, that one, actually. That's
Yes,
Lupin's
it's a lovely one. Yeah. We're more interested in the cowl.
Yes.
In the Philosopher's cowl.
It's my Philosopher's cowl, which the pattern comes out on Saturday. If you're watching this the day that the podcast comes out, is tomorrow, but it's the 1st of September, start of the new school year at Hogwarts.
And remember that lessons will commence at Halloween in the Forbidden Forest.
Yeah.
And it is a requirement that you have your Philosopher's cowl.
Philosophers, can't say it, Philosopher's cowl.
It's a requirement.
For the lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
So grab your wands, find your minis, and get knitting.
Philosopher's cowl out on the 1st of September. Pattern will be available on Ravelry. I've opened a chatter thread in the Bakery Bears group on Ravelry if you want to go over there and just ask me any questions that you might want to. Or just chatter about your yarn choices, how are you going to construct it? Are you excited?
Get knitting your crenellated ribbing.
I know, yeah, it's really cool. Shall I take it off so you can see it properly?
Yeah, and also...
It's a little bit warm.
Yes.
But it's lovely to wear, actually. It's really lovely to wear. So there we go. That's my Philosopher's cowl. And it runs from... These are all minis that I've dyed. It's on my sparkle base. And they're all Harry Potter minis, so Harry Potter colourways. So it could be that you've got all these, because I think there's only one. There's only the orange that I haven't dyed before. All of the others I have.
But someone actually asked, you might have seen this, I think it was in the Ravelry thread, maybe on the last episode, and they asked if they could take part in the cowl and use any yarn. Well, of course you can.
Of course, it doesn't have to be Harry Potter themed.
No.
And that's really why I mean, I haven't been dyeing up kind of sets and things for it because I didn't want to give the impression that you could only use Harry Potter
You can use any
themed yarns. You can use whatever you want. You know, the idea is that you could use minis. Of course, you can use mini skeins that you might have purchased specifically. Use your imagination, really. But my idea was that it really melds from one colour to the next, to the next, to the next. And, you know, I took some time to work out a sequence of change, you know, when you're actually changing over the yarns to really make it look like it's melting, like the colours are melting. I think I said it was like, you know, imagine the sort of steam coming off a cauldron. It's that kind of colour sort of graduation that I wanted. And I really love it. So, yeah, really pleased that this will be out and you can start your cowls, and it's just a lovely, simple, really relaxing knit. It's such a I think it's just such a lovely thing. If you don't have mini skeins in your stash, don't think that you absolutely specifically need mini skeins. You don't. You can just go to your stash, look at what you've got left over, and just pick them out and line them up. This actually is these are my leftovers, just in a little paper bag, and you don't need all of the 20-gram mini skein. I had between, the ribbing section uses a bit more just because of the nature of knits and pearls taking a bit more yarn than plain stocking stitch, but I had between 3 and 5 grams of each left over. So this was like the first colour I used, and this was the last colour, and I've got less of those and a bit more of the other ones. So I like that you've got enough left over if you are using mini skeins, that you've got enough to put squares in your blankets if you're knitting those, or your crochet blankets or whatever. So you can still use like every little bit, and you could, if you wanted to, put them squares in your blanket in the sequence that you've put them in your cowl. I think that's a really nice thing to do. So yeah, if you want to just use scraps, as long as you've got 16, 17 grams to be on the safe side of each colour, you'll be absolutely fine.
Cool.
So yeah, there we go.
Now, since we seen you last, we saw a cool movie.
Christopher Robin. Oh,
It's amazing.
it's so lovely.
But
it's so lovely.
I don't want to see it again for a bit.
It's quite a tearjerker, but not in a sad way, is it? It's in a kind of, oh, that's so lovely kind of way.
I would argue quite strongly that it's a harder film for a man to watch than a woman, because it's about a man giving up his toys.
Yeah, and I think for a man as well, a lot of men don't really like showing emotions like that, so you might battle with it a bit more, whereas a woman would happily just sort of get a bit teary. And I just thought it's such a beautiful film. It really is.
Yes.
And the way they've done the animation.
It took a really... do you know what? They could have gone two different ways with it.
Yeah.
And with respect to the Peter Rabbit movie, Peter Rabbit, it's a fine movie. It's cool to watch, but you could have gone the same way with the Pooh film.
Yeah.
And that would have been fine. But actually, what they've opted to do is to make a film that's not really for kids.
I don't think it is I think there was a lot of really young children in there.
Bad choice.
I could kind of see they were like, there was one in particular in front of us who was moving around a lot. He wasn't settled. He
was bored. I don't blame him. I would have been.
A bit, because I just don't think he was getting what was going on the screen.
Certainly, from my perspective, it was not aimed at him. It was aimed at the adults.
Yeah, and older children. Bryony absolutely loved it. She's 12 going on 13, and she thought it was fantastic.
Yes.
So I think that's the perfect sort of age, and adults as well. Your mum will love it.
What I was so impressed with was the courage it took to make a film where it's not... They did amazing animation.
Yeah.
But other than that amazing animation, where the characters look real...
They do.
Not a lot happens. And I think that's brilliant.
No, I suppose. Well,
it's not like
it's a very gentle story.
It's an old-fashioned film.
Very old-fashioned, and it's set during the sort of World War II time, isn't it?
What it does is it focuses in on a message. And
it's got a very strong message in it.
And the way it makes that message strong is not by shouting it out at you. It's by not doing very much else. just focusing in really solely on that one message. And so you'd have to be an absolute loony to not realise what that message was.
Yeah.
And the message is just a brilliant one. You know, it's a great film. And we shouldn't say what that message is because it'll spoil it for you.
No, we don't want to spoil it.
Just go watch it. Kate, what you said is right. You know, it is most definitely, and I think, you know, only someone in their 40s would probably say this, it's the most beautiful movie I've ever seen. And I would agree. We have made a decree.
Have we?
Yes, and that decree is no more socks for me.
Oh, yeah, we did. We were talking about this.
I'm going to finish the 2 pairs I currently have on the needles, and then Kay loves knitting socks.
Yeah.
So it's pointless that I knit socks too, because she can churn out socks for everybody, really. So, you know, I'm sure Kay would much prefer it if I churned out garments for her.
Please go ahead.
So I'm going to leave the sock knitting to Kay, and I'm going to focus on other things. And I have an idea. You see, yes, there'll be more space for more garment knitting, but I do think that it's important that, you know, something else fills that sock hole. Kay is going to become the primary sock knitter in the family. Are you the primary or the secondary sock knitter in your family? We were joint, you know, we combined our sock knitting prowess for each other, but now...
I guess we did, yeah. I've always knit more than you, though, more socks than you.
Yeah. Now I'm you know...
You're not even going to be secondary, then.
I'm going to become
tertiary. Is that the third? I don't know.
I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad, and Kay's going to be our primary sock knitter. A solitary sock knitter.
I was going to say, yeah, who else is there?
No. Well, I might knit one every so often, you know, who knows. But
you might do, but
yes.
There's no need. And I said this to you the other day, you weren't enjoying, you were like, oh, gosh.
But also as well,
why do you even do it? You've shown that you can knit socks now. You're very competent at it. You've knit several pairs. You've gone through that whole process. You've gone through that whole process with the book.
Yes.
You know, and done all that. And you've done enough now to make an informed decision and to say whether, yes, I enjoy it, I'm going to carry on doing that, or no, it's not really my thing, I'm going to do something I enjoy. I
appreciate the techniques, but actually knitting socks I don't enjoy, so I shall move on. And I think, speaking of moving on, we should find out, Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
Well, the first thing I've got to talk about is something a little bit sad.
Something that's coming off your needles.
Well, I think it is. It's the cardigan that I was knitting, the iced cardigan. This is nothing to do with the pattern. It's the iced cardigan by Carol Feller. And I spoke about it last episode very enthusiastically. You will probably remember. It's this one. It's a free pattern. You can get it on Knitty, but if you go onto Ravelry, Ravelry has links to the free Knitty page and you can just download it. It's knit in a super chunky yarn, and I thought this is brilliant. You know, I can knit this garment in no time at all. I will have created a great gift for someone for Christmas, and it won't have taken me very long, and I will have knit a garment. Well, I picked it back up after speaking about it last time. I didn't do very much. I spent about an hour just working some more on the raglan increases. You can see they run down there. And after a few rows, I was like, do you know what? I don't think I'm enjoying this. And the reason I'm not enjoying it is these great big needles. I think, apart from a blanket that I knit for my friend a few years ago, I can't remember, I don't think that was even on needles this big. I've never knit on needles this big. They're 8mm needles. It never really crossed my mind that this would be a problem. And I don't know why it didn't cross my mind. Obviously it feels a lot different to knitting with sock size needles. Massively different, but I didn't anticipate that it would cause me any sort of physical problems. Well, my hands were hurting, and it's slow. For me, it's really slow. It's not quick. I think it's a myth that chunky or super chunky, in this case, garments will be a quick knit. It really isn't, because, you know, it's so laborious to knit a stitch. just because the needles are so big, and even just, the movement of getting it in and then having to hold it just because of the way I knit, wrapping and everything. It was a real chore. And I knit it for about an hour. I sat there thinking about it and thinking, no, don't be silly, just get on with it, just knit it in short bursts. I'll just have an hour here and there. And then I thought, well, what if those hours, I'm just not enjoying those hours? So really, time is precious, life is precious, and I don't think we should be spending time doing things that we don't have to do. A non-essential thing, because it isn't essential that I make this, as a gift for Christmas. I can do something else. Then I just don't think we should force ourselves to be doing these things.
Not when it's knit with premium acrylic and,
Well, it wasn't expensive. If it had been a really expensive yarn, then, I'd be really having to think about it. But it wasn't expensive, the yarn. It was 20-something pounds for the yarn for the whole cardigan. So, yeah, I came downstairs. I don't know what you were doing.
That's the beauty, actually, of making the decision which you made. Choosing to knit it with a yarn. It's a lovely yarn.
It's really nice.
Nothing wrong with that yarn.
I used to know I do want to use it.
It's given you the ability to be able to go, I'm not going to knit it. Because like you just said, had it been, some expensive yarn, you'd now be really, really annoyed. And you'd probably be forcing yourself to get through
because it's taking up a huge amount of space in my stash as well, this yarn, because it's a great big packet of it like this. So I've just got to think about what I'm going to do with it, because I don't want that just sitting there. So I said to Dan, well, I'll just donate it, I'll put it into a charity bag and it can go into a charity shop, and I'm sure somebody will snap it up without a problem. Or, I could always try crocheting something with it, maybe just a little baby blanket or something like that.
The charity thing, though, sounds like a really good plan, because,
that's probably what I will do, to be fair.
It's going to benefit the charity, plus it's going to benefit a knitter who's going to pick up a bag of nice yarn for not a lot of money.
Yeah, so I think that's probably what I will do. And, I'm disappointed. I'm not the sort of person, if I start something, I really like to finish it. I'm very mindful about what I start knitting, because I like to finish what I start, and I don't want to just willy-nilly cast things on thinking, well, it doesn't matter if I don't finish it. I'm not that kind of person. I really like to, if I've said to myself I'm going to do it, I like to just get on and do it. But on this occasion, I just think, it's a great big thing. And then it was the other thing I was thinking about with the sleeves, knitting the sleeves as well on these great big needles, whether it's double points or whether I do it magic loop. I think that's going to be even worse, This will be coming off the needles, I'm sorry to say. It's not the yarn's lovely. It's the Stylecraft Life Super Chunky, and the colourway was Spice. It's a 75-25, 75 acrylic, 25 wool. Dan Jones.
Yes.
Tell us something nice. What's on your needles?
I've got to say, Kate, it sounded like you were persuading yourself there and nobody else.
I was.
Because I think everyone else had quite happily said, that's just fine.
Well, you probably are all saying to me, I know you will all say, if that's how you feel, don't worry about it, just rip it off the needles, rather do that. It is an internal battle with myself, because how my brain works. It's like I feel like I've failed because I set myself this task and I'm now not going to do it. So I've failed, and that doesn't sit well with me. But I will get over it.
How could
It's just knitting.
Well, it's cheap yarn.
Yeah.
A free pattern?
Yes.
Yeah, and needles you already had?
Yes.
So what's there to get over? Does anyone get stressed about going to the tip? Now, just work with me on this one. And, maybe it's different in different countries, but in this country, the stipulations around visiting the tip are high. I mean, really, really high. The list of what you can and cannot take to the tip is a long one.
People might not know what the tip is.
The tip is a place where you take things that you need to get rid of that you can't put in your bin.
Recycling centre might be another word for it.
Yeah. So yeah, recycling centre.
We always just call it the tip in this country.
We got the car all loaded up, and you go down the tip, and you pull in, and I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't terrified as I drove in, because you always want to try and look really nonchalant and cool as well.
We've not got anything dodgy in here.
Yes, there's nothing dodgy. It's like driving through customs. You're absolutely petrified. Someone's going to come out with a rubber glove on, and you're going to be in trouble. Well, pulling in, I was terrified. And you pull up and open at the back, and there's always people stood around. But do you know what? It's just hilarious. I don't know why we get so stressed about it, because no one really gives a monkeys once you're there.
Well, you said no, I didn't go. Dan and Bryony went. We had a huge clear out of all sorts of stuff, and there was like broken bits of furniture and a garden bench that had fallen apart. It was all things like that.
You're always terrified they're going to turn around. I'm always terrified. I even think about what I wear, because I try and think,
you want to be like incognito.
Well, I don't want them ever to be able to turn around. I was honestly thinking as I drove down there, they're going to think that I'm a contractor, and I've just put my daughter in the car just to hide the fact that I'm doing a job at someone's house, and I'm getting rid of.
Because it's just for personal waste. You can't.
As a business, you have to take it.
You have to pay for business waste.
Or take it to a specific tip. And it was just hilarious. It's hilarious. So you went down, and to be fair, they really couldn't care less what I was throwing in, so long as I was putting the right things in the right places. But what really made me laugh as well was, we had a really good tidy out of the garage. I think it's always good to do that in there, and get everything sorted. And Brian was helping me as well. And you get in the corners, don't you, in the garage, and there's always loads of cobwebs. And I was like, oh, I know, it's fine. So brush these cobwebs away. I pulled this cobweb down, and I'm not joking you. This spider looked up at me and went, "Well, howdy do." It was massive. It was massive.
Bryony hates
It was so
spiders.
massive, I brushed it with the brush, and it just stood there looking at me. This was one tough spider. He's still there now.
Didn't dare.
I'm not going near it.
No. Terrifying, I think, aren't they, spiders?
Well,
it's
it depends.
the legs, isn't it? It's the legs.
I don't mind.
And the ones with the big fat bodies. Oh, I can't be doing with those.
I can cope with a certain size of spider, no problem. And, I will do my utmost to save them as well.
Because the spiders eat the flies, don't they?
Yeah. So, I will always do my utmost to look after spiders. But not this one. I'm not even going to touch this one. He can take care of himself.
We've left him in there.
Yep. That's your house. We live here, but I will want a tiny bit of rent.
Yeah.
You can pay me in flies. No, don't do
Oh,
that.
no.
It's Hermione's everyday socks, and it's my second sock. Kay's picking the first one. And, just to
these are lovely.
to give you an idea on, I do feel, I've changed needles.
Oh, they're nice.
Changed needles. This is way better.
Yes. I bought you some hires.
It's way better. I still, because of my tension, I still do have a little bit of difficulty getting them on and off the needles, because there is a ridge there. So
there is, yeah.
There is.
Yeah, sometimes you can get one with a really good connect. It's a bit.
There's a major ridge there.
One. Yeah, there is a bit on that one. I'm knitting high highs. Yeah, I mean, even me when I'm knitting magic loop, you've got to be careful, haven't you, with the first and the sort of that last stitch when you pull your yarn over to start the first stitch on the front needle. You just have to be careful not to pull it too tight, because that's what then, you're tightening it up on the cable, which is obviously a lot thinner than the needle. So I'm always conscious to try not to really pull on the yarn too much when knitting that first stitch.
What I really value in this whole process, thinking this through, is I did the Dan and Lara project, and I nailed DPNs, and I know I love knitting with DPNs, and I much prefer knitting socks with DPNs, and that's a winner for me because I wanted to get good at DPN knitting, and I have. But then I went, right, okay, so nailed DPNs. I've never really understood exactly what I'm doing with Magic Loop. So I went through the whole process of, you know, the tutorial series which we ran and knitting this first sock. And, you know, I didn't enjoy knitting that first sock at all, but I'd be lying to you if I said I haven't enjoyed knitting this, because I have. Because that sort of intense learning process is finished and I can sort of relax into it and just get on with the job. I know I'm not going lightning fast with this, but I'm most definitely enjoying it. And what I'm being able to do is I'm being able to now understand a lot more what's going on when. To the, you know, right to the point of, for the first time ever, Kay's now done 2 different techniques. It's only 2 different techniques, isn't it?
I think so,
on closing the gap with socks. This year she's nailed this new 2-stitch closing technique, which works just brilliantly. If you can do it, it's the best one, isn't it?
Yeah, but sometimes it, like with this, because you've got pearl bumps going on, it's a bit trickier to see where you are meant to pick up.
So what I was able to do is going up the first side, so going up that side there, I was able to do the 2-stitch technique, and it worked perfectly. But then coming down this side, because of the pearl stitches within the pattern, I couldn't do it. So what I did was, I did the one leg of each stitch.
Yeah, you pick up, a lot of people do it this way, I think, where you pick up this, so you've got 2 stitches in the gap side by side, and you pick up one leg of one stitch, one leg of another stitch, and then pretend that that's one stitch.
And then you lift them over with your other needle.
Put them onto your left-hand needle and then knit it. So that works really well.
So did that on that side, that on that side. Yes, that one is lovely, it's perfect. This one is not quite as good, but what I was able to do is, I was able to look at it, understand that there's no way I could do that 2-stitch.
Did you do the 2-1 on this, 2-stitch on this one then?
I can't remember what I did on there.
I can't tell whether you have or not. I mean, that's a loose stitch, which we can tighten that up actually.
I've done a much better job on this sock than I have on that sock. You know, that was very much a learning sock, and you know, just getting the techniques right. And you know, I think when you're taking in an awful lot of information with regards to learning, you know, I think that takes time to just settle and, you know, for you to fully understand it. Well, I feel really good about this. There's still moments where, you know, the whole Magic Loop sock thing just makes me laugh. You know, I said to you, didn't I, the other day, there was some stitches and I'm like, you know, there's like stitches everywhere and there's like cables all over the place. I'm like, how do I get those over there? She just said, just knit across, just pull them out, knit across, and then slide it through and everything's fine. Done. Easy peasy.
A lot of people, this is a good way of showing actually how we work the gusset on Magic Loop. We change the direction that you're knitting. So normally you're knitting, you know, across this way, but when you do the gusset, we actually change it and split the stitches the other way. So you work the gussets like this. And I know a lot of people don't do that. They'll actually have, like on the front needle, they'll have all of the instep stitches, and on the back needle, they'll have all of the gusset stitches and the heel as well. So there's a lot more stitches on your back needle than there is your front needle. And a lot of people work it like that, but I don't like having the ratio of stitches so dramatically different. And I know that decreases down as you work through and it gets easier, but I just find it much easier to work it where you've got the same number of stitches on your front and your back needle. You can see exactly where you are.
I think it's much easier on your hands as well with regards.
It's easier on your hands,
yeah.
And you're less likely to get severe ladders as well.
Yeah.
I think when you've got a lot more stitches on one needle than the other, you've obviously got quite a taut join going on, haven't you? Because there's a lot of tension. And I think you're more inclined to get a ladder.
Yeah,
as well.
Definitely.
But you know, whatever works for you, really.
It's Opal yarn. The more I knit with this, the more I get used to it. And
doesn't mean you're liking it.
The more I've knit with this, the more I've got used to it. And do you know what? I mean, once you're used to it, it's fine. It's fine. And if you didn't know any different, it's fine. But you know, I do know different because I'm obviously knitting the prairie socks and I'm using the Colsey Mendes, and you know, it's just a joy to work with. And you know, it feels so stringy, you know, it just doesn't feel, It looks good though, and you say it feels really good.
I love the colour of this, and I think it's particularly because I love it with the Hermione's pattern.
Perhaps it's just different materials.
It kind of blurs it all. I love that look.
Maybe it's just, it's just it's different fabrics, and and it's all good at the end of the day. I don't know, but I just like Nicole C. Mendes' base more.
I would agree with that, actually. Yeah. It's a beautiful base that she uses. It's plump and squishy, and it's just lovely.
Or imagine if you knit a pair of gloves with that.
Really?
No. I wasn't meaning. I was just saying, imagine if you, not you, you as in, how would you say it? One. Imagine if one knit a pair of gloves with that stuff. That would be amazing. But yes, Hermione's Everyday Socks, nearly finished-ish. Enjoying it now, wasn't before, so jobs are good.
It's nearly at the end.
What else is on your needles?
Well, this is one project, but there's two things in there. The other day, I really fancied knitting with some of my old Opal stash. I don't do this very often because it's kind of precious to me. It's discontinued ranges that I can't ever get again. But I just thought to myself, do you know what? I'm gonna pull one of those out, and I'm gonna start down another pair of socks with it. So I decided to use one of the Van Gogh colourways. It's number 5437, and it's this colourway. I'm not sure of the name. I think it's that In Variation Knack. I don't know. This is the yarn. I'll hold it close and then you can see it. And it's this painting. And this yarn was a gift, actually, from a lovely lady who said she'd got it in her stash. She didn't care for the colours, and would I like it? Well, you can imagine what I said. I said, yes, please. And I've had it a few months because, I have to do that. I have to just keep it for a little while before I knit with it. And I decided I was going to knit with this one. And I actually love the colour.
I wonder if I'll ever be like that.
No.
No. Why?
You don't love yarn like I love yarn. You don't. Yarn is just you enjoy it and you appreciate it and you like it when it's nice and soft and all that, but you don't have an emotional attachment to it.
No.
I
do to projects then.
Yeah, you do to projects, but not to the actual yarn itself.
Lots of knitters do have an emotional attachment to yarn.
Yes.
I wish I understood that.
I think it's very common. In this instance, it's the fact that I think a lot of times actually it's when you know that you can't ever get it again. And, never say never. Who's to say that Opal won't re-release it? But I think it's kind of unlikely, isn't it? And you just think, I'll save it. I'll save it for that time when I really need something lovely. But then, you'll be saving it forever, won't you? And you would just never knit with it. And then who knows what might happen? It might just still be there when
Do I have that sort of emotional attachment to anything?
Your drums.
But I don't hide them away and not play them.
No, but they're very precious and you've got a very emotional attachment to them.
I suppose.
So that's one. I thought, right, I'm going to cast that on. But then I also wanted to knit with some brand new Opal that I just got. And I say brand new because...
Is that different to brand new?
Yes, it was at the time because this range came out mid-August. And I actually, you could get it in Germany already, but I wanted to wait and get it from a UK supplier that I use because I'd rather use a UK supplier if I can. So I sent a message to the lovely people at Woolstack, and I've done this before. I use Woolstack all the time. They're always excellent. I thought, right, I'm going to send an email to them and see when they're getting this range in. And I sent the email at something like 7:30 in the morning, like I do. And I actually got a reply back before 9 a.m. I mean, I just thought that was amazing. Lovely man called Kevin said, oh, we're actually getting that in today. He said, normally it'll take us a few days to sort of get it onto the website, but if you tell me what colours you want, I'll put you an order together. I mean, how amazing is that?
That's good.
So I did. I said, right, okay, I'll have this, this and this. He did that and I got it, I think, 2 days later. Brilliant. And the range is Symphony of Dreams is the English translation. I'm not going to try and say it because I just can't do German at all. And this particular colourway is the
What
one...
languages can you do?
None. English. This particular colourway is number 9615, and when I was looking at the colours on the website, it's all of that. I mean, I can't possibly say all of that. How long of a word is that? I will hold it close and pause your screen if you want to read it.
I love that.
I have no idea, honestly. But I just really loved the colours. Are you going to try and say that?
Socken stricten lactung.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, it's 9615. And I really wanted to try that out as well. So I thought, okay, why don't I just cast on 2 pairs of Shorty socks for Dan? And let's have...
2 pairs?
2 pairs. Let's cast on 2 pairs. Because, you know, he's been going on about these Shorty socks, and I'll show you something in finished objects. So I thought, right, okay, he's got 1 pair already. I've just finished 1. If I do 2 more pairs, that's 4 pairs. I also wanted to try knitting them with a smaller needle. I've always historically knit Dan's socks on 2.5mm, but the last pair in particular, and actually I've noticed on a couple of other pairs around the ankle, they look sort of quite baggy. And I do think your feet might have slimmed from the running. Okay. I know that sounds stupid, but I think they might have.
I've been on a foot.
Well, people are saying don't be daft, it's your gauge, but I've actually measured my gauge on the socks I've just knit, and it's exactly the same as I always get, so it's not my gauge. So right, okay, it's a good opportunity to try out a smaller needle as well. So I'm using exactly the same needle on both pairs. I'm using a higher sharp 2.25 because I had 2 pairs of that available. So the first sock I cast on was the new one, the Symphony of Dreams. This is the colourway Caked Up. It looks kind of uninteresting, doesn't it? Let's be honest. And as I was knitting it, I'm thinking, yeah, it is kind of uninteresting. I'm not that fussed. But I think it will look nice when it's done.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah, I love that blue stripe.
I don't know if you can see, but there is 2 different tones here. When you look in the cuff, there's 2 different tones. It's subtle. But now, it's subtle. Now I'm going to run into like a little sort of multicoloured mini stripe section, which I think will be kind of interesting. So that was the first one I cast on. And this is just to the point of the heel. Because I'm knitting these on slightly smaller needles, I'm doing a few more rows because I know my gauge is obviously going to be tighter. So I've done 15 rows rib, 15 rows for the little mini leg, and that seems to be about right. I did 12 and 12 before on a bigger needle. And then I cast on the Opal, and I'm further along with this one actually. I've finished the gusset decreases and I'm on the foot because I suddenly had a panic and I thought, I'm knitting these 2 pairs on these smaller needles, and what if they don't fit? So I thought, right, okay, let's focus on 1 sock first and get that finished. You can try it on and then I will know. But actually looking at it, I think it'll be okay. So this one is the Opal, which is lovely. And I almost cut the yarn after the heel because you can see you get like a chunk of effectively the same sort of section because you've worked the heel with this bluey bit here. But I thought, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to waste the yarn really. And who's gonna say anything about that? Nobody. And I really love this soft colourway. It kind of reminds me, I posted a picture on Instagram so you can see it better, but within the kind of reddish, brownish sections, it's actually shades of like a muted sort of red and a muted green. Kind of looks Christmassy to me. And I don't know if this painting is actually set at Christmas because it looks like there might be trees on it and it could be snow on the ground. Is this a Christmas painting? Is anybody an expert on Van Gogh? So I'm on the foot of this one, and yes, it's definitely smaller than Dan's socks usually are. But I think, you know, looking at the stretch on the cuff, I think it's okay. Because as long as you can get this bit over your foot, you're fine, aren't you, really? It's normally this bit. And the stretch on it looks okay. So I think it'll be all right. And I'm hoping it might just be a bit of a better fit for you. A bit less baggy. I've been doing something a little bit different on the last few pairs of socks actually. I've been kind of experimenting with it. Do you know how you can get a jog? I'll show you on, this was Fibre Nymph Nyan Cat. Is it Nyan Cat or yeah, Nyan Cat? And I knit Bryony these socks a few years ago now. But the first sock I knit, I did on 60 stitches and it was a bit too small. So I knit a pair on 64 stitches, there was enough yarn. So I had just this little leftover sock and it was too beautiful to unravel. The reason I took this off is because I wanted to show you, do you know when you join for knitting in the round, you can get like a little jump. I don't know if it's going to be obvious here, but there is a little jump down and I get like a sort of loose baggy stitch as well. There's like a step down and a baggy stitch. Oh, it stuck to the microphone. It's totally stuck to the microphone. Oh, that was funny.
Nearly dropped it in your tea.
I did. And that's always annoyed me. I've been trying a few different techniques lately to try and just close that gap. And I've been doing something that I think now has really helped. So if I show you this one, here is the join. And I think it's much better. So I will be putting this technique into an upcoming pattern because I think I've done it I wanted to really test it out before I kind of incorporated it into a design. I think it really makes a difference and it probably might not be coming across on camera, but when you look up close, I can see a difference. So I was really pleased with that. So yeah, I'm working away on these and really enjoying the Opal. I won't go on about it again, but I know that you're going to be wondering if I think there's a difference between the old and the new. I think I can tell a difference, but the problem I've got at the moment is I've thought about this so much because I do overthink things. I think I've thought about it so much that I just don't know anymore. Do you know what I mean when I say that? I just don't know. So I'm just going to try and forget about all that business and just knit what I think looks pretty. I have to say I'm enjoying the Van Gogh more than this one, but who knows if that's just totally a mental thing. Last thing I'm going to say about Opal. Have you seen that there's going to be a new range in December that's based on Claude Monet paintings? Oh my word. You can see the yarns. If you just Google it, just Google Opal yarn Claude Monet and you will find, you know, a photo of what the colourways look like. I love them all. I was just so happy. It was Sarah Hepworth that told me about it because Sarah knows everything about Opal. She's like some kind of, I don't know, not a spy, but you know what I mean? She'd be brilliant in the war.
Have you spoken to her about the thickness?
Do you know I haven't?
I think you should.
I don't know if I have, Sarah. I don't think we have spoken about that. So yeah, there's this new range and it looks fantastic. I've got to say that the colourways are kind of more like this, you know, and they're very reflective of the paintings. Oh, they're lovely. I'm going to get the whole range. It's out. I had a look on the German website that I use and I think they have got it coming out on the 6th of December. So I'm going to keep an eye on that German website because I want to get it before Christmas, you know. So if I have to order it from Germany, then that's what I will do. I just don't know if it's going to be out quite the same date here in the UK. So yes, there we go. 2 pairs of socks for the price of 1.
So I was asking Kay about the jog thing. You can see it really clearly there, can't you? There's a jog there. You said
I haven't done it on a hat yet, but
you said you think it would work.
Yes, I think you can do exactly the same.
So I'm going to get the sock pattern when you put it out, and I'm going to try out the.
Well, I can show you what it is. I don't mind. You don't have to buy my sock pattern.
The Mon Ami is the new bankhead. I've knit 3 concurrently now.
Yeah, that's nice.
And well, I predicted that way back, and I did think very seriously about not knitting another one. And doing something else, but because I messed up my floats, although after blocking it did look a whole lot better, and I showed that in detail in yesterday's return to the journey to the centre of the yoke. I keep on calling it return to the centre of the yoke. That can be series 2, return to the centre of the yoke.
Are these all films?
That can be when I have to tink back and fix some colour work I've messed
Journey to the Centre of the Earth. I like the version with the duck. It's the older version, isn't it? There's a version where the fellow that he takes down as his guide has a duck in his backpack. Or is it a goose? I think it's a duck. You don't know what I'm talking about.
We are literally from two different eras. It's just another Monomy hat. I'm, you know, I cast it on straight away, got going, because I know what I'm doing, I understand the pattern, and I can, you know, I think the problem I had before between Monomy number 1 and Monomy number 2, this is Monomy number 3, is there was too much of a gap. So I've, you know, just got on with it and got knitting, and hopefully what I want to do is I want to knit through it, and I want the gauges to I just want it to look nice, you know, be even all the way through, even if it's not quite right, you know, so long as it's even, not like really loose and then about right and then too tight towards the end, which is what the last one was. It's definitely improvement on last time, but you know, like any technique, you've got to practice it, haven't you? And you know, it felt right to do another one of these. I'm enjoying casting it on, I'm not bored, and I do tend to get bored with hats now if, you know, I don't feel engaged with it, but you know, I just think sometimes you need to listen to your brain when you're learning something, and my brain told me, just knit another one of these, focus on that gauge, everything will be lovely. So I'm feeling confident. So the pattern, the Monomy pattern, will be the 4th and final platinum pattern of the 2017 collection, and it will be out in the first couple of weeks of September for our gold and our platinum patrons. But as we said last time, I think did I call it the 2017 collection?
Did you?
It's 2018. I can't remember.
It's 2018.
Either. Well, look, this year's platinum collection finishes with the Monomy, but next year's platinum collection starts all over again on December the 24th.
Yeah, and that pattern I've got worked out, and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm just so thrilled with it. I've shown it to you. Can you remember it?
Yes. What else is on your needles?
I've got one other thing today.
Yes, and I have an announcement after you show this.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, it's exciting.
After I've shown it.
Or maybe part way through, I'll maybe try and steal some of your thunder.
Oh, okay. I've started something. Oh, it's quite exciting actually. And at the moment, I'm really, you know, I don't want my enthusiasm to wane. And you'll know why it might wane when I tell you what it is. I knit Dan a pair of gloves. It's 5 years ago now. I looked on Ravelry. I couldn't believe it was that long ago. I knitted a pair of gloves.
They're still fine.
And you still wear them? You wear them every year?
My chosen gloves, even though they don't really fit.
They never fit really well.
But I've never had a pair of gloves that fit me well, because I have enormous hands.
Yeah, and I think I've never been happy with the fact that they didn't really fit particularly well. The fingers aren't long enough, basically. I've always thought I'd like to knit him another pair, and so the thing that spurred me on to think, right, I'm definitely going to do that, is that I had to darn one of the fingers, didn't I, last year?
Yeah.
It wasn't on the top, you know, where you gather your stitches. It wasn't there. It was on like your finger pad. I don't know what that's called. Fingertip. Your finger pad. So I darned it, and it looks quite sweet darned, doesn't it? Because I used a slightly different colour, and it looks kind of cute. But I've always wanted to knit you another pair of gloves. So I thought, right, okay, what?
5 years on, honey, no one believes that.
Nobody believes it. Do you not believe it? Look, it's taken me 5 years.
It's taken you 5 years to build yourself back up again.
Well, do you know what? And this is the thing. I think I've just got it in my head that it's going to be this traumatic experience, because I can't fully remember how I felt about knitting them previously, because it was 5 years ago. It
wasn't a traumatic experience, you blitzed them off.
And I looked on Ravelry and I actually knit them like in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you blitzed them off, you nailed it.
So it can't have been that bad, can it?
And they're superb.
You've worn them for 5 years.
They are.
We can't complain.
They still are fine. She's done the end, but they're absolutely fine. They're the best gloves I've ever had. No gloves have ever fit me, as I've already said, because my hands are so big. They're the closest that's ever come to fitting. Hopefully these will fit me perfectly.
Hopefully these will fit better. I did use a specific pattern, and it's on my Ravelry page. I can't remember the name of it. It did have a sort of texture pattern on the top here, but I just knit them plain because that was just too much for my brain to compute at the time. So I thought, I don't want to use that same pattern that I used previously because it didn't quite fit right, you know. So, and then I remembered in my books upstairs I had this, the Knitter's Handybook of Patterns by Anne Budd. And this is brilliant. It's basically a collection of sort of like blank canvases, if you like, of different patterns, different items, and they're all sized. There's loads and loads of different sizes, but it's also sized in a way where you can just measure your gauge, and then you go to your stitch gauge, and then it gives you all of the numbers that you need for your particular stitch gauge. There are gloves, mittens, hats, jumpers, vests, all sorts, scarves, all sorts. So that, right, okay, I know what my gauge is because I've been knitting it with sock yarn, so I know what, you know, I've knit enough socks now to know what my gauge is. We measured Dan's hand. And
Kay fainted.
well, his hand is actually bigger than the largest size in the book by half an inch, I think it was. The largest size in the book, it goes up to 9 inches.
It is a whopper, isn't it?
Circumference round here, and Dan's was 9.5. So I thought, right, a bit of negative ease will be fine, I think. So I'll just go with the largest size. So I found my gauge. You just sort of follow. I don't want to show you, obviously, because it's in a book, but it's like this. So I just found my gauge, went across, looked at the stitch count and saw how many I had to cast on. Did that, but so I was going to use 2.5mm because that's what I normally use, and I know that I get 8 stitches to the inch on that. But I decided just to go down a needle size just for the cuff, because I think the cuff of a glove can get baggy, can't it? Because that's how you pull it on and off constantly. So I thought I'll go down a needle size just for the cuff so that that's nice and snug to stop any cold air going up your hand. And then I changed it to 2.5mm for the actual hand. So I started these a couple of days ago. I decided actually to go down. I said to Dan, what colour do you want? He's like, I'm not bothered, I will wear pink if you want. Well, I shouldn't have said that, should I? Because I almost knit pink, but I'm not that cruel that I would make him wear pink gloves, although...
Says the man sat in a pink shirt.
I know, but no, I wouldn't have done that.
I could pull them off.
Well, I'm sure you could. So then I thought it might be fun. I've seen gloves knitted before where people have used like an opal yarn, you know, a self-patterning yarn, and they look brilliant. You know, all the fingers were kind of slightly different, obviously, because you've got a tiny stitch count around there, and they just look great. So right, I'll go into my stash, and I found this, and I've had this for ages. It's Regia Design Line by Kristen Nicholas. I think it was Garden Effects was the range. This particular colourway is 03314, and I looked it up. It's called Summer Fruits, although I don't know what's summery about it. It looks more autumnal to me. Doesn't it to you?
Yeah.
It's very autumnal, but this is the yarn. Whoops. I looked it up, and I could still find this in a few shops. And I saw it in the UK, I saw it in the Knitting Squirrel, and I think Laughing Hens as well had it. But I'm pretty sure it's the discontinued range now. But if you just Google it, you might be able to find it if you're interested still. So I've got 2 balls of this because they're 50 grams. I hand wound the first ball because I was downstairs at the time I was casting on, and I couldn't be bothered going upstairs, basically. So I just hand wound it, which took me 3 times as long, but saved me walking upstairs. And I've cast on. And I'm working on the thumb gusset increases at the moment, and I love this yarn. Look how lovely this is. Oh, it's so pretty. Look how pretty that is. I say pretty, but I think that's perfectly manly enough for gloves. So Dan wanted, for the ribbing, he's like, oh, I really like that 2x2 twisted rib. I've done it recently on something else. And he said, oh, will you do that? I said, yeah, that's fine, I'll do that. And I did. It took me, 2 or 3 days actually to get this rib done, because it turned out to be 34 rows to get sort of 3 inches of rib. And doing, twisted stitches, it's quite hard on your hands, isn't it? Because you're having to sort of go into the back of the stitch, and I just found it quite a bit sort of taxing on my wrists. But it was fine. It wasn't unpleasant or anything like that. I just took my time with it. But now I'm onto the main body of it. It's going really quickly. I only started this bit this morning at sort of 6 o'clock, and I just knit for half an hour and got that much done. But isn't the yarn lovely? I absolutely love it. The colour repeat is huge. It's really long. So if you look here, we've got a blue and then it goes green, orange. It's up here. See this blue? So it runs, all of this is the colour repeat. I think that's phenomenal. And it's really interesting to knit, you know, because the colours are always changing. And I love this 2x2 twisted rope. It's so professional looking. And that's the reason I wanted to knit these at a fairly tight gauge, because when I get to the fingers, isn't it? That'll be the tester. So these are, you can see I've got stitch markers here and here on the front and the back needle. This is where I'm working the thumb increases. And normally, for mittens and things like that, I would do all of the thumb increases like on one needle when I'm working magic loom. But again, it's this whole sort of having more stitches on one than the other and it being a bit uncomfortable. So I decided just to split them. So the thumb is sort of here up the middle. And that's much easier to work. You know, you've got one increase on this side, one increase on this side. So we'll see how that goes, but so far I'm really enjoying it. And they're lovely, you know, and I would say don't be afraid of gloves. I don't think they're any more tricky than socks. I know you've got all those fingers to knit, but I don't think that's particularly hard. I think it's just obviously going to be a bit fiddly, but I don't think it's difficult.
No.
I'm actually rewriting the pattern out in a format that I can understand as well. Not that I can understand, because I can understand the book perfectly well, but there's multiple sizes everywhere and it takes you a bit of time, you know, when you're looking down, what's the next bit? So I thought, right, as I go along, I'll write out the pattern and then I've got it for future pairs of gloves. Listen to me.
Yeah.
This is a brilliant book. Really, really great book. I can't remember. I think I must have just got it on Amazon, I'm presuming. It's a US publication, but I must have just got it on Amazon. It's really great.
I'm going to knit some gloves.
Oh, stop it.
I am, I've decided. When I finish my socks, I want to knit you a pair of gloves.
You do not.
I do.
It'd be too fiddly for you.
I don't care, I'm going to try.
Well, you can knit them. You can knit worsted weight ones and then it won't be that fiddly, will it?
But
well, it might even be fiddlier because you've got less stitches. I don't know that you would enjoy it at all.
I don't care, I'm going to try.
All right, okay.
Because you've knit me a pair of gloves. And this will be your second pair.
I haven't done them yet. This will be the second pair.
Yeah, so I want to knit you a pair of gloves.
Right.
I figured that might be a good sock replacement.
Maybe.
Did you like the way I enunciated that?
Well, you're very lucky because my hands are substantially smaller than yours.
They are. Yes. So yes, that's my big announcement. Once I've finished the 2 pairs of socks, I will be casting on a pair of gloves and I will use
You heard it here.
some nice thin yarn like you're using.
Oh, stop it, you will not.
I will. I want stitches on my needles. I don't want like 3 stitches on each needle or something.
Right, okay.
Bring it on. Come on. I mean, it might be hard work, but no pain, no gain, sister.
Oh, right, okay.
It's my last project. It is the Solia. And made lots of progress on this. It finished the body. And look.
Oh, matching bags.
Matchy. Totally separate. You know, this was a gift from someone. And I think this was a gift from someone as well. 2 completely different people.
It is
This was from Germany.
Is it the same fabric?
This wasn't from Germany. No, it's different.
No, it's slightly different, but it looks similar.
But it looks close enough. So yes, the body is done.
So you've got your project spread over 2 bags.
Yeah. Why?
Why? Okay.
Well, no, tell me.
Well, that's a bit bizarre, but never mind.
Why is that bizarre?
Because you've got your project in 2 different bags. Do you not find that a bit weird?
But the space issue.
You've not asked me. I can find you a bigger bag.
This works.
All right.
What's the problem?
There isn't a problem.
So
Carry on.
When I finish that sleeve, that'll go in that bag.
Right.
Yeah. And when I finish the next sleeve, then I'll be able to then get rid of that bag, and you know everything will then be in the bag and coming together with the top.
Right.
And I think that there might not be enough space in there.
No.
We'll see how we go. But this has been the most challenging thing I've ever knit. I've learnt more in knitting this actually than anything I've ever done, which is really cool, you know. Once you sort of thread, I would have finished this sleeve had I not had difficulties in understanding what I was supposed to be doing. I would have done. there's a huge amount of emotional buy-in when you go through a journey of discovery and learning with a project, and I'm really thrilled that I'm now at the point where I understand what needs to be done. I don't fully know if, because you're not a lace garment knitter.
I'm not a garment knitter, but
No.
yes, I would definitely not be a lace garment knitter.
So I don't know if there is unwritten things which lace garment knitters just know. You know, there might be this sort of range of knowledge.
Well, there might be.
Because
but
we do find, I think you do find in patterns that sometimes there is unwritten things which you are expected.
Assumptions.
There's assumptions, which I don't necessarily agree with the fact that, that there should be, but
no.
I get the fact that, you know, because, you know, if we think about the old patterns that you were knitting, you know, there's huge assumptions made that you know
true.
certain things. So perhaps it's ingrained within the sort of industry of you know, pattern creation, certainly for garments. But, you know, I've now got to the point where I can knit this thing and not have split flowers and, you know, just about manage to position them. So, well, it's going to look fine.
But you've amended the pattern.
Yeah, but it works. It works for
A very
me.
kind friend sent us a photo that she found of someone's sleeve, the inside of the sleeve here, where the increases are, showing how the pattern tells you it should look, and basically it has great big blank areas.
The pattern is so loose in its instruction on the sleeves, it's difficult to know if that is what is
and
meant.
I just wish in the pattern there was an actual photo of what the inside of the sleeve, where the increases are, what it should look like, because if you had a visual,
that would resolve it.
It would have saved, oh my word, so much angst, and you had to rip it out, didn't you?
Yeah. And, you know, to be fair, I messaged the designer about another issue, she did reply within about an hour,
She did.
which was really good.
She did.
So, you know, what I might do is I might just message her and I might just say, you know, I had real difficulties with the sleeve.
Yeah.
I think it might, well, I don't think, I know
It would have been helpful.
I wouldn't have had those issues if I'd been able to see a picture of what the inside of the sleeve looks like.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, hopefully she might then pop one in, because I think that would then resolve confusion. But, you know, knit it, and now I know what I'm doing, and I feel good about it, because I feel like I've learnt lots. You know, at the end of the day, when you're increasing and you've got a lace pattern going on, you have to put those stitches somewhere, and knowing where to put them it's the challenge, really. But now I do, and
It's beautiful, actually, isn't it? I mean,
I've gone from missing Samantha. It feels like I'm having an affair with some Swedish lady.
Oh, look at you!
Solja. Well, no, it feels like Samantha's my wife, and
this is where the increases are, actually, isn't it?
yeah, but they'll be in here, won't they?
Yeah.
Be up the inside of your arm.
I feel like some sort of warrior with a cuff or something.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
She has like a thing on her, which
But
can
it is lovely, isn't it? I mean, it's beautiful.
So lots of progress made on the Solja. This sleeve is progressing really well, and I would hope, nay, demand of myself, that by the time you see this next, I will have finished this sleeve and I will be well into the next sleeve.
And we went down a needle size, didn't we?
We did, because in the pattern, a lot of people had put that the sleeves are huge.
That it's big, you know. So after
and also
I tried it on and I thought this seems quite baggy.
Because I probably knit that far.
Yeah.
You know, the wrong way with the bigger needle size, and, you know, Kay felt it was a bit baggy.
I said, well, why don't you just, you know, carry on with the cuff size needle, and I think that will help, and it's definitely helped.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think it'll be fine. I don't like sleeves tight anyway, but conversely, I don't want big baggy sleeves. You know, you want just a nice pattern.
Lovely, thanks.
Needle.
Yeah, all great. Look, autumn is in the air. We have established this at the start of the show, and I'm telling you it is. Chilly mornings.
He thinks that makes it all right.
The facts are this.
Possibly does.
The facts are this. Chillier mornings, check. Slightly goldening tops of trees, check. Running in the rain, check. That reminds me of that song. by Barbara Streisand. Kiss Me in the Rain.
Don't know it. We're not Hugh Grant and what's the name?
What's her name?
Oh, I don't know.
Andy McDowell.
Thank you.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. That was very
Look,
random.
It's autumn, and there's only one thing you want to eat in the autumn, and that's an apple pie.
Apple pie.
So let's go make one.
Yes. I think it's been way too long since we did some baking. We want to share with you some of the tastes of our childhood. These were the dishes that were served to us by our mums and our grandmas. We know our favourites, but we would love to know yours. So we're going to bake all of our favourite puddings. And at the end of the series, you can vote for your favourite. This year, why don't you join me for the Bakery Bears Pudding Club? So come on, let's get baking. I don't know about you, but as the season begins to turn from summer into autumn, there's only one thing I really want to eat, and that is apple pie. But where do pies come from? Well, the very first pie recipe published dates from Roman times. It featured a rye dough filled with goat's cheese, and that delicious sounding savoury pie set the tone for the next 1500 years. It wasn't until Queen Elizabeth I was served cherry pie that dessert pies actually took off. The first ever recorded recipe for apple pie dates from the late 14th century in England, and whilst apple pie had arrived late to the party, it quickly became a firm favourite. It was so popular that when colonists arrived from Europe into North America and they realised that only crab apples were native to their new home, they quickly sent word for the need of apple trees. Enough talk, my tummy's rumbling, so let's get baking. Okay, so baking notions. What notions will we need to make our lovely apple pie? Not a whole lot, you'll be glad to know. We just need a bowl, usual kind of bowl for making our pastry and then for keeping our apples in when we chop them up. We need a pie plate. Now, the recipe that I'm going to do calls for about a 9-inch pie plate. Now, when you choose your pie plate, first of all, make sure it's metal. These are the sort of old-fashioned tin plates, and I really love these. It's up to you whether you use the one that's more like a bowl or more like a plate. Now, this is a smaller one. This is slightly smaller than 9 inches, but I just wanted to show you for an example. I always used to make them in a plate. I really liked the kind of look of it, and you pile up the apples in the middle so that it does make a nice dome shape. But for this recipe I'm going to use the one that's more like a dish, because you can get more apples into this. So it's about 9 inches, metal. Don't try and use a really pretty ceramic pie plate, because although it will look lovely, you won't get that, you know, your pastry will be soggy on the bottom, because you need the metal to conduct the heat through, you know, to the bottom of the pastry. So always use a metal pie plate, whichever one you choose. And then just a rolling pin for rolling out our pastry, and then a couple of knives, a nice sharp one for just trimming off sort of pastry edges and for cutting out some little decorations, and then just a normal knife. I always use that when I'm mixing the pastry. So what ingredients are we going to need for our apple pie? First of all, for the pastry, we're going to need some plain flour and some butter. I always use salted butter. I know a lot of people prefer to use unsalted, entirely up to you. We're then going to need some apples. Now, for apple pie, I always use cooking apples, and these ones are Bramleys. They're really the best, you know, so, but again, this is a personal choice. If you prefer to use eating apples, then you've just got to be cautious with the amount of sugar that you use, because they're already very sweet, whereas cooking apples are quite sharp. But I find that the Bramley cooking apples, they give the best texture. They kind of break down a little bit and the edges go all fluffy. We're then just going to need a lemon, an egg, some sugar. Now, 2 kinds of sugar actually, just a little bit of white caster sugar for the top of the pie before it goes in the oven. And then to actually put with the apples, I prefer to use light muscovado, which is like a pale brown, soft sugar. But again, if you prefer just to use white sugar, you can do that. And then just a little bit of corn flour, which I will tell you how we're going to use that once we get cooking. So there we go, that's all of our ingredients. Okay, so now it's time to start baking. And the first thing we've got to do, of course, is to make the pastry. Now, you can buy pastry. Obviously, in supermarkets these days, there's some very good ready-made pastry, but I really would encourage you to give pastry making a go. If you've never done it before, it's really easy. It's literally like 2 ingredients and a bit of water, and you've got some pastry. And there's nothing to be scared of. If at the end of the day it goes wrong, you can always use that backup pastry that you might have bought, but really give it a go. It's well worth the effort. The flavour is so much better, the texture is better. It's just all round, in my opinion, 100% better than ready-made pastry. So please give it a go. So first of all, we're going to need a bowl and some weighing scales, obviously, and just pop those on. So we need to weigh in 350 grams of plain flour, and be as precise as you can with these measurements. There we go, bang on 350. Because you've got to remember that baking is a science. It was always called domestic science when I was at school, so you should remember really that it is a science, and measurements are important. Don't let people tell you that they're not. Okay, so we've got 350 grams of plain flour, and we're now going to put in 175 grams of butter. It's always half fat to flour. If you ever forget, just remember that you need half the weight of fat to flour. So 175 grams or 6 ounces. Just grab a chunk and just sort of cut it into your flour, and just obviously watch your weight on your scales. And we want 175 grams. 174, 175, there we go. So now what we need to do is we're just going to rub the butter into the flour. So obviously give your hands a wash before you do this. And first of all, I just kind of coat all the butter pieces in flour, and then just go in with your fingertips and just start squashing the butter. Basically is what you're doing. You're just rubbing it into the flour, and give it some air when you do it. And if possible, you really want, when you're making pastry, you really want a sort of cool atmosphere. Okay, so you can see now we've got what looks like lovely fine breadcrumbs. If you want to make sure you've got all the kind of lumps of butter, if you just give your bowl a little shake, it will bring any bigger lumps to the surface. And you can see there's a couple there, but nothing kind of major. So you can just go over the surface and get those little bits of butter. So it probably took only about 5 minutes actually, that, to get those rubbed in. You want to be as quick as you can, really, just like I said, to minimise the amount of time that you're in contact with it, so we can just keep it nice and cool and light. So I think we're there now. You can see how lovely and breadcrumby that is. So what we're going to do now, I always use a knife for this. We need about 6 tablespoons of cold water. So what we want to do is get a tablespoon and just sprinkle it in a tablespoon at a time. You'll need about 6, but just go with whatever your pastry is telling you, because certain flours absorb different amounts of water. So just put your first tablespoon in and just give that a nice stir through with the knife. And when that's all incorporated, go with your next one. And just keep track of how many you're putting in there. So this is the second one. if you want to, if you're sort of pushed for time on the day that you're making the pie itself, you can make your pastry the day before and just pop it in cling film in the fridge, and it'll come to no harm at all. It'll be okay for 24 hours in the fridge, really. You want to just get to the point where it's holding together. Don't put too much water in. And I think, to be honest, I'm there actually with that. So when you think you're about there, just go in with your hands. And you can see that's come together now. So I only actually needed 5. Just bring it together quickly. Just give it a little. Don't overwork it or anything like that. Just bring it together. And now we're just going to wrap that in cling film and pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes. And what that does is that 30 minutes sort of resting time gives the gluten in the flour a chance to start working, and that's what will stop it from being crumbly when we roll it out. We want a nice smooth pastry. So 30 minutes or longer, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a bit longer, but at least 30 minutes in the fridge. Okay, so the pastry is out of the fridge now. I've split it in half. I've got the other half wrapped in cling film. Keep it wrapped in cling film because you don't want it to dry out. That'll be for the top of the pie. So this is the base that we're going to be rolling out now. So make it into a rough circle and flour your work surface. I'm just going to put a little bit more there actually, just to be sure we don't have any sticking pastry. And then we're going to roll out from the middle out, making quarter turns each time. So from the centre, rolling out, and then make a quarter turn, same thing. Quarter turn. And just keep going basically, from the centre out. I always find that I never get a perfect circle, but you know, this is the joy of homemade. We really just want to make sure that it's the right size for the pie tin. So if you've got a pie tin that's about 9 inches across, you want your circle of pastry to be about 14 inches. So just keep going. Don't flip your pastry over. And really don't stretch it either. So that's why we're working from the centre out, so that we're not going all the way down and stretching the pastry. And doing those little quarter turns will stop it also from sticking, because you're constantly moving it. So you just want to be sure that when you put your tin over the pastry that you've got excess, because obviously it's got to go in up the sides and then over. The other thing I'm going to say is you don't need to grease your tin either. Sometimes if you grease it with butter, it can actually cause it to stick rather than have the opposite effect. So you don't need to grease it. So we're just going to reach underneath and then pull it over to our plate. Do a bit of kind of jiggling and then just ease it. So sort of pull the sides up and ease it in and get that air out from underneath. And just gently push it down. You can see we've got a nice overlap, which is what we want. If you get any sort of areas that tear like that a little bit, just squish it down. So that's our pie dish all lined. So now it's time to get the apples ready. So what I actually do, just to make sure that this doesn't dry out, is I just stick a bit of cling film over the top. And then that'll just stop that from drying out, just for the sort of 10 minutes that we're getting the apples ready. One thing I just need to do before we start prepping the apples is turn your oven on, about 200 degrees, that's for a fan oven. So just make any necessary adjustments and put a solid baking sheet in there. You can see I've got a really nice solid baking tray there, and get that heating up. That's important because what we want to happen when we put the pie in the oven is we want that heat to get straight to the bottom of the pie as quickly as it gets to the top. And by putting it onto an already heated baking tray, that'll just help that process. Okay, so come back in part 2. We're going to prep the apples, we're going to finish off our pie, and we're going to get it cooked.
That for me, it's this time of year. I'm really thrilled to have memories of getting home from school right at the beginning of the new term and my mum having made one of these. And what she used to do is, she used to make them all the time. We'd have them we would actually have it with custard, and we'll get on to what you can have it with, you know, in part 2. But as the year went on, you know, she would start off, we would go and pick the apples from the apple trees, and it was a brownie apple.
Yeah.
What she would do is she would start to just amend the apple pie recipe as it went through the rest of the year. And by Christmas, she'd be making an apple pie, and she'd just be putting in a smattering of mincemeat.
Mincemeat, yeah, that's really nice actually. That.
Yeah, it was delicious. We'll be back in part 2, in not long at all, to finish off and to taste our lovely apple pie. Will it be worth the effort making the pastry?
Will it?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make you wait. Yes, it is. I've got to say.
Yeah, it is worth the effort.
My goodness.
I don't even think it's that much effort.
Kate, as you know, without delving too deeply into my stomach issues, if I have anything with pastry, I've got a real issue. A real issue.
It's too heavy for your stomach.
Yes.
You didn't have any issue?
Not one issue at all.
Because you had a couple of pieces yesterday.
Not one issue at all. You know,
that's good.
Just amazing.
Maybe it's the difference between, you know, something effectively that's processed. You know, when you buy ready-made pastry, it's got preservatives and things in, hasn't it?
Also, as well,
and
I think that
they don't use the best quality. Quite often, it's not butter, and even when it is butter, it might not be the butter you would use. You know.
I think it's the butter. You know, a good quality butter that really nails it, and I think also the freshness. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
All to come in part 2. It's now time for us to find out, Kay Jones, what is off your needles?
Well, I feel a bit disappointed, but I've only got one
I don't
thing.
feel disappointed because finally I can have another pair of Shorty socks. I'm actually quite excited about this.
I'd finished these about a week ago actually, so he's had to wait for these. But I did finish these. Yes. Next, the pair of Opal Shorty socks I was working on.
Folks,
this was
no joke. Shorty socks are exceptional.
I know you've lived in that pair of socks. I've had to wash them about a million times so far.
They are stupendous. And what excites me the most about Shorty socks, I think, is going into winter. Sometimes, even in winter, you know, a long pair of socks, if you've got on a pair of trousers, it's just too much. You're too warm. So
you're always too warm.
Not when it gets into winter.
Oh, I look forward to that.
So will I.
This was the Opal Talisman yarn, and the colourway was Freud. Freud? Is that how you say it? I don't know. Is that how you spell Freud, as in the man?
No,
so I don't.
I would call it Freud.
Oh right, okay. So it's Opal Talisman, and that's the colourway. If you're interested, it's like oranges and greens, a little bit of pink, and here are the finished sortie shocks.
Sortie shocks.
Sortie shocks.
Nice.
Absolutely. There they are, all done. It's this yarn actually, it was really nice. I think it looks really nice.
Yeah.
And, you know, these were done with 2.5mm, so let's see what the next pair are like.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'll be a good comparison, won't it?
It will.
But I'm hoping they'll be okay. You know, I obviously don't want to have wasted my time.
They'll be fine.
I don't think. See, this is me overthinking the whole situation again. So yeah, they're all done. They've been washed. When I first wash new socks, you know, that I've just made, whether they are commercial sock yarn like this or hand dyed, I will always wash them by hand first of all. and block, you know, wash and block them in my hand so they're all nice for photographs and to show you. And I think it's just nice to see. I like looking at them, you know, they just look so lovely and perfect when they're all freshly blocked. But then after that, if it's a commercial sock yarn, they will go in the washing machine. I don't, for hand-dyed sock yarn, I don't put in the washing machine. And I know a lot of people do, but I do think even at 30 degrees, I mean, that's the lowest temperature I've got on my washing machine. I think that's generally the lowest on most washing machines, I would say. I do find that it fades the yarn if I put them in the washing machine, so I don't do that with hand-dyed. But yeah, they're all done. You can have them. I don't even know if I photograph them for Ravelry. I will make sure that these go on there. So I won't give you these till I photograph them. Which
genius.
I'll do straight away as soon as we finish.
Go on then, get on with it.
I can't do it now, can I?
Let's just forget about that and let's get on with the rest of our apple pie.
So now it's time to get our apples all ready for our lovely pie. So as I said before, I've got a kilogram here in this, you know, uncut up weight in its natural form of Bramley apples. If, you know, when you've weighed them out, if you get a bit more than a kilogram, it doesn't matter. If you've got too many apples at the end, that's better than having not quite enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel these, we're going to cowl them, we're going to slice them. And as we put them into the bowl, when we're just sort of getting them all ready, I've already put a bit of lemon juice in there. If you can see, I've rubbed it all around and there's a bit of lemon juice in the bottom. I've got the rest of the juice of the lemon, 1 lemon, in here. And as I sort of put them in, as I put in each batch of apples that I cut up, I'm just going to sprinkle in a bit of lemon juice. And what that does is, first of all, it stops them going too brown. They will go brown really quickly. And also it just adds a bit more flavour to the apples as well, so it's a sort of double whammy. So do this process as quickly as you can, just to stop the apples going brown. It doesn't affect the flavour, I don't think, when they go brown. It just doesn't quite look as appealing. I just cut the apple in half and then into quarters right through the centre. And then I just take out the core. Peel quickly. And then just slice them nice and sort of fairly thin. But you want them to have a bit of form still in the pie. You don't want it to be mush. I can't stand that pie filling that you can buy in like tins, can't you? And it's just basically mush. I can't be doing with that. You want a bit of texture in there. Okay, so we've got all of our apples cut up there with the lemon juice. We're now going to sprinkle in the sugar and add about a tablespoon of corn flour. Now what the corn flour does, you might not want to do this, you know, if you're a real purist, you might not want to do this, but the corn flour will absorb the juices that inevitably obviously come out of the apples, and also the sugar is going to melt as well and create a liquid. So what the corn flour does is just makes that into more of a, you know, a thick syrupy liquid, rather than getting all of that juice that can sometimes run out of pies. So that's our apples already, and you can see how juicy they are already actually. So now I'm going to quickly roll out the other piece of pastry exactly as I did for the first one. Okay, so we've got our pastry top here waiting to go on. You can see I got a fairly good circle this time. Typical, when you weren't watching me, I did a better job. So now we're just going to pile in the apples. So you want to, you know, arrange them so that when we've not got any gaps or anything like that. And we are going to mound these in quite a lot because they will collapse as they cook. But you do need to put in more than you would think you do. So once you've got them all to the kind of edge of the pie dish, you can then start sort of mounding them in. And you can see I've got all these sugary juices which we want to get in. I'm going to create a nice kind of domed hill shape and keep them from sort of the very edge. I'm gonna get them all in, everyone. Let's just pile them in. Got an apple mountain. Now, you probably noticed I didn't add any spices or anything like that. It's up to you if you want to do that. I don't like apple pies that have lots of flavours going on. I just want to taste the apples, you know. But if you want to add in cinnamon, nutmeg, whatever you want, that's entirely up to you. I just prefer this pure sort of format. So we just need a tiny bit of milk, and I just dip my fingers in, I don't bother with a brush. And I just rub that around the edge here, because we want the two pieces of pastry to stick together nicely. And a bit of milk will help that. Okay. So now I'm going to put my hand underneath and just quickly whip the top on. There we go. So what I want to do now is find the edge of your pie plate, and we want to kind of crimp the two edges together. So I tend to just sort of push it down and then squeeze at the same time to create sort of little ridges, but do this however you want to do it, really. And then get a nice sharp knife, pick up your pie and just trim. Okay, pop that pie over there. Now we want to make a steam hole, so I just go in with my knife through the pastry and give it a little wiggle, and then just open up. And that's to, obviously as it says, it's just to let the steam out as it cooks, and that will give you a crisper pastry. So now we can decorate the top if you want to. If you don't want to, you can just glaze it. I'm going to explain that in a second, and pop it in the oven. But you can if you want to, because you've always got loads of leftover pastry. Just make some little adornments for the top. So I'm just going to cut out a few leaves. I'm just going to re-roll the pastry out. It won't be the best pastry in the world because we've obviously already used it once, but just make the best you can of it. And then I just freestyle, just cut out some leaves. You know, I'm really not precious about it. I just do some little leaf shapes. I mean, if it's sort of, you know, Christmas time, you could get a holly leaf cutter maybe. But I just do some leaves. And then I just put on some little leafy marks. Just to glaze the top, you would probably most likely use an egg or milk. But I find that if I just use the egg white rather than the whole egg, I find that you get a much shinier finish to your pie without any colour. Because it will colour naturally anyway in the oven. So just give that a quick mix. So I'm just going to brush the egg white over the top of the pie. All over, get into all those little marks that we made all around the edge. I love these pastry brushes actually. It's like I think it's made of silicone, you know, rather than the actual brushy type ones with, you know, with bristles. I find that these ones, because it's very, very flexible and it washes really easily as well, they're really good. So we can now just stick on our leaves. Be as artistic or not as you feel. One more I think will be fine. Okay. And then give the leaves a little glaze as well. So it's now ready for the oven. So our oven will have preheated nicely now. And just before it goes in the oven, just get about a tablespoon of caster sugar and sprinkle that over the top. That will give a nice crunchy topping. And we'll add a bit of sweetness as well for those that have a particularly sweet tooth. I like my apple pies to be a little bit on the tart side. So, you know, just judge it yourself really, what you prefer. There we go. So I'm now going to pop that into the oven onto that baking sheet and give it 15 minutes at 200 degrees. And then I'm going to turn the oven down to about 180 degrees, that's a fan again, a fan oven, and give it about 30 to 35 minutes. You want it to look lovely and golden brown on top, and when you pop a knife into that little steam hole there, it wants to go easily through all those apples. They want to be nicely soft. So I'm going to pop that in the oven. So I've cut a slice and we're ready to try it. Now I was a bit eager to cut it and it was boiling hot. I should have really left it. I mean, ideally when you take it out of the oven, I would leave it a good 15-20 minutes because the sugar in there obviously is very, very hot and the fruit is very hot. So when I cut mine, it was just a little bit, it was just a bit too hot. But anyway, I've got some and I'm going to try a piece. It looks delicious. The pastry is really nice and crisp. Already I'm going to blow it a little bit because I don't Oh, what I will say, I'm having this plain with no cream and no custard, but it's perfect with either of those things. You know, just normal pouring cream. You could make some chantilly cream, that would be delicious, or custard that we've made before, as you know. So any of those would be fabulous with it, but I actually like it just plain as it is, so that's how I'm going to try it. So here we go. It's a bit hot. Oh, it's lovely. It's nice and tart, it's not too sweet. The apples are soft, but they've still got a bit of bite. And the pastry is lovely and crisp, so it's perfect. I actually really like apple pie when it's cold. I love it cold actually, in fact, it's really nice. Even with cream when it's cold, thinking about it, it's delicious. So hot or cold, it's the perfect thing to make in what is almost September, which means it's almost autumn. Hooray for that. So there we go, delicious apple pie. So join us next time for the Pudding Club, which will be the last in this current series. So we're going to make it something extra super duper special. So we will see you back then.
Yummy! Oh my goodness, it is
lovely.
Just the best. Lovely that it brings back so many wonderful memories for me, and it does. You know, it makes me think of my gran. It makes me think of her horrible thick custard that we sometimes used to have with it, and just so many happy childhood memories.
It was lovely.
Did you have apple pie as a child?
Yeah, we used to have apple pie, definitely. I mean, the one I made there was. It probably wasn't as sweet as a lot of people like it. And I'm sure I said, adjust your sugar if you prefer it sweeter, but I prefer it tart.
But that wasn't that tart cake.
It wasn't. When I say it was just erring on, there was a bit of a tartness to it. It wasn't
if you think
super
about
sweet.
it.
I don't like super sweet apple pies.
But that crust had sugar on it, and there was a sweetness coming off the crust.
Yeah.
So surely, just like in savoury cooking, where it's all about the balance between, the salt and
you serve it with something that's sweet generally, don't you?
Yeah.
So, custard is sweet, and you don't want sweet and sweet together. It's
hot apple pie with a scoop of vanilla
ice cream. Yeah, I know.
Oh.
We didn't mention ice cream, but of course you can have it with ice cream as well. That would be delicious.
And go make your pastry.
Definitely
go do it.
Make it. It's really not difficult. And
do you know what? Another memory that's just come flooding back to me is my mum. I would always make the pastry with her. So I remember
rubbing it in.
going in there and rubbing in. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that. Why would I have done that with lard as well?
Oh, well, I actually think the best pastry is made with half butter and half lard.
Right.
And that's how I always used to make my pastry, whether it was savoury or sweet, because the lard gives an extra crispness.
Right.
And
Although that pastry was crisp that you
it
made.
was crisp, yeah, but it gives a kind of melt in the mouth sort of texture. But I think these days a lot of people don't like cooking with lard, which, to be honest, if you're going to use, butter is an animal product, isn't it? And I know not in the same way, obviously, as lard is. But I think a lot of people don't like. I think
Well,
but
that
whatever.
pastry was beautifully crisp.
Yeah.
And I think that was what it really made it for me.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's the reason why it's brought back so many childhood memories.
It's lovely and crisp on top, but obviously the pastry that's underneath the pie isn't going to be crisp as such, because you've got the apples on the bottom.
It wasn't horribly soaked through and horrible. It was holding together just lovely.
It's properly cooked underneath. Yeah.
And that all stems from the metal plate, doesn't it?
Metal plate. Yeah. Really important.
Can you believe it? I can't believe it. We're now at the end of the series. We've only got one more pudding club to go.
Oh yes.
Don't worry. We know how much you guys have enjoyed it, and we're already thinking about next year's series. But first of all, we need to finish this series in style. So I can't wait to see what you've come up with.
The seasons have definitely dictated my kind of choice of puddings. So
well, we need to go out on a high.
Yeah.
And we will.
Definitely do some research and some thinking.
We will. Folks, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
So you've obviously already mentioned the Philosopher's
cowl.
Please come and join in the cowl.
Please do.
It's so exciting.
You don't have to finish it. We've said this before, but wherever possible now with our knit-alongs, we will put in the rule that you don't have to finish the item. So if it's getting towards Halloween and you think I'm not going to finish it, just pop a picture of your progress in the FO thread and it will qualify as an entry.
And the reason why I'm so excited about this cowl is definitely not because one of the prizes is Lego.
Oh, we got the little, we got the little Lego figure.
Oh yes, one of the winners will get, who knows, I can't wait to see, because obviously we won't know until we've sent it to you, because it's a blind bag, isn't it?
It's a blind bag, we don't know what's in there.
I cannot wait to see, whoever wins, please post a picture.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the end of it already.
I know.
What am I talking about?
And the prize for that knit-along is the skein of 9 3/4 yarn.
Perfect. Oh, yeah.
From Piggy Yarns, if you remember. I'll show you that again maybe next week, just to remind you what the prize is. And I am knitting with that yarn as well, so hopefully you will see that in the next episode as well.
Show us some yarn. Kay's done some dyeing.
Oh gosh, Well,
I was out eating ice cream. Kay was toiling away at the dye pots.
My dyeing is severely restricted during the summer holidays. When Bryony's off school, it's just not possible, because I don't have a separate dye studio or anything like that. I just have to work within the home, which I know a lot of dyers do, and that's just not feasible in the holidays. But anyway, I had a day when you were going out this week.
Yeah, the wheels are beginning to turn again.
With Bryony, and I just said, do you know what? I'm going to dye some yarn. So I did, and I just thought I'd show you a little bit of it. And a lot of it is largely inspired by our recent trip to the Lake District, which is quite nice. I will be dyeing up some more Fairy Garden. I know a lot of people have asked for that, so I will have a batch of Fairy Garden for the next update. But I just thought I'd show you the new ones that I've been dyeing and just having a bit of fun with. I did this lovely colour, which, oh my goodness, I just love. This is me all over, isn't it? Oh my goodness. It's pinks and plums and purples and a bright neon pink. Oh, I just love it. It's gorgeous. So there'll be some of that colourway. I haven't got a name yet, but...
How do you call it, me all over?
Me all over. Could do, couldn't I? Yeah, that's quite sweet. because that is me all over. And one thing that I'm going to start doing, I don't normally, I don't keep any of my yarn that I dye. And I know a lot of dyers do that, they'll sort of keep one aside for themselves. I don't do that because I just think, I don't dye a lot, you know, I don't have the capacity to dye an awful lot. So what I do dye, I want people to have, you know. So I don't tend to keep any, but I think I'm going to start keeping just the odd skein of something that, you know, particularly I think, oh, that's, you know, that's really me. So this might be one that I'm going to keep a skein of. I think it'll make fantastic socks. Everything's socks with me at the minute.
Me all over.
Me all over. That one is going to be called then. We've just named that. It's just, oh, it's just beautiful. Look at the colours. Oh, beautiful. Love it. Love that one. And then I've got a batch of this, which I also love. And this one I'm going to call Windermere. Oh, because it's all the blues of the lake. And then there's also a kind of, can you see there's a purpley, mauvey sort of colour in there. There's a more greeny blue as well in there. Just all the kind of lakeside and sort of like heathery sort of colours. So that is going to be Windermere. And again, I think that would make fantastic socks or anything. Ignore me.
Or gloves.
Or gloves.
Oh, they make great gloves.
And then I did this one, which I love all of these actually. I just had a day, I thought, right, you know, I've not dyed for a few weeks and I'm just going to have a bit of fun and we'll see what occurs. And I've got some new dyes. I treated myself to some new dyes recently. So I just had some fun. So then I did this one and I love this. And this is going to be called Hilltop because it's, although obviously we went to Hilltop in summer, this just makes me think of Hilltop with, I don't know why, with all these sort of autumny tones, oranges and greens and golds and the lovely chestnutty colour. So this one is Hilltop. I'm not going to say it'd make lovely socks, but it would. And then this one was inspired when we were in the Peter Rabbit shop in Bowness, which is a beautiful shop. I was just sort of flicking through some of the little books. And in one of the stories, I think it was the Mrs. Tittlemouse story, there's a bee in it, and the bee is called Babbity Bumble, and I was just drawn to it because, you know, Bee and Bryony, we always call her Bee, and the little drawing was lovely and the colours were really nice. So I remembered the colours were, the wings were kind of like a really soft see-through apricot-y pink colour, and then obviously you've got the bee colours. So I did this one, and I'm going to call it Babbity Bumble. Oh, isn't it lovely? So you've got that sort of soft apricot-y background with then the bee colours. Oh, I love that one. So that's Babbity Bumble.
So when's the update?
The update, then my next yarn update will be Saturday the 8th of September, 7 p.m. We're still on British summertime in the Etsy shop. So that'll be the
there'll be lots more.
Update. There'll be lots more.
Yes.
I'm going to be doing some more dyeing. There'll be lots more. These are all on my Bolton base, which is an 80/20. There'll be a load more on Sparkle base, and I'm hoping to have some sock sets as well because I've got a load of minis. And there might even be some floofy yarn as well because I've still got some floofy. We've got 2 knit-alongs going on.
Go.
We've got the Summer of Sorcery knit-along and the knit-along for the Promenade socks. They both end on the 31st of August, which is...
Today. If you're watching it today.
If you're watching it on Friday, today,
yes.
Then they end today. So I will close the threads on Saturday.
Yeah.
So that gives you obviously the full day on Friday. If you haven't finished the Promenade socks, just post a picture of your progress in the FO thread and it will qualify because you don't have to finish for that particular knit-along. So get finishing your other ones for your Summer of Sorcery knit-alongs. You know, you've got that last minute time to get those posted. And then in the next episode, we will announce all of the prizes for both of those knit-alongs.
And as those 2 knit-alongs finish, the Philosopher's Cowl
knit-along will begin on the same day, on the 1st of September. So that's quite neat and tidy, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, running the whole time through all of this is our Climb Every Mountain cowl. So loads going on, and you know, you can keep up to date with all of it really in the Ravelry thread. It's the best place to sort of find the chat threads, find the FO threads and everything. And that's it from you.
I think that's it.
Cool.
Yes.
So thank you so much for watching. It's a really exciting time of year for us because we're coming to the end of our summer programming, coming to the end of the Pudding Club, coming to the end of New Adventures and getting ready for our winter programming. And that's when things get seriously exciting. And there's some really, really exciting little things happening. I don't want to say too much at the moment because I've got to do quite a bit of work to make certain things happen. But just be prepared.
Stuff.
Let's get prepared.
What's that?
That's my prepared face.
I'll not say what it looked like. But...
So thank you so much for watching, everybody. We will see you in 2 weeks for more.
Yes, thanks everybody. I'll see you soon. Happy knitting.
Bye.
Bye.
Sitting and knitting, it's Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what